What is going on, guys? This is Yacineygo, and today I will be going over the new staple that we're going to be getting in Burst Protocol by the name of Forbidden Crown. So the OCG already got to play with it in the past like 2 weeks or something. We're going to be getting it in quite a while, but still always, always good to review these cards ahead of time instead of being super late to the party when we will be getting it. And yeah, this card is also very complicated, very fun to resolve, regardless of who's utilizing it on which side of the field, because you can target you can use it on your own monsters and on your opponent's monsters. Anyways, before we go any further, as always, you know the drill. Smash the like and subscribe button, really motivates me a lot to keep making videos like these. And with that being said, let's get right into it. So of course it is a quick play spell card, just like every other forbidden card, and it reads: neither player can activate monster effects in response to this card's activation. Apply all these effects to one face-up monster on the field, so it doesn't target, until the end of this turn. So its effects are negated, it cannot attack, it cannot be destroyed by battle by card effects, it is unaffected by other cards' activated effects except its own, so it's still affected by continuous effects. It cannot be tributed, and it cannot be used as material for fusion, synchro, exceed, or link summon. A lot to digest here. This card, I wanted to sum it up and kind of simplify it for a lot of people and compare it to, like, I guess a combination of these 4 cards. So Warning Point, which is a card that prevents a monster or monsters from being usable for material for fusion, synchro, exceed, and link summons. It cannot attack, and the effects are negated. So this already encompasses like 3 effects of Forbidden Crown, and also Pianissimo, the fact that the monster cannot be destroyed by battle by card effects. Miscellaneous Aura is the fact that your monster is unaffected by your opponent's activated effects. It's either that or like some form of towers, but remember again, if you've got a Baguska, the monster is still going to defense, so that does matter. And then Darkest Diabolos, or Diabolos in general, the fact that your monster cannot be tributed, so you cannot Underworld Goddess can't Underworld Goddess it, you can't Kaiju it, you can't destroy it in any way, really. You can't really, there's no way for you to remove whatever monster is being affected by Forbidden Crown out of the field, which is very unique. So if you use it on anything, it is sticking on the field until the end phase, until the end of the turn, regardless of what happens. So like I said, you can use this on your own monster, you can use it on your opponent's monster. There is merit to both, and this card is not equally as good going first and second. I've heard a lot of people say that Forbidden Crown won't be a staple just because not really good to use like going second, because this as a board breaker, I can kind of understand. Like, let's say you're playing against Exorcister and you're using this on Magnifica. Yeah, sure, you don't have to deal with that Magnifica for the turn because the effects are negated and everything, but you're not dealing with the Magnifica at all. It's sticking on the field, and when you pass turn back to your opponent starts like their turn with like a Magnifica that is not negated, which is kind of scary. So then now you have to deal with a card that was already there that you couldn't deal with in any way. And if your opponent used like Nibiru and tributed your whole field, the Magnifica will stay on the field. So that is kind of an issue that you were gonna have to deal with. And if you're not prepared with Forbidden Crown, you can get outplayed by your own card, which, it happens. However, if you're going first, this card is significantly better than a lot of other cards you could be playing. I'm not gonna lie. It might honestly be one of the best cards that you can side deck. So if anything, I'm not necessarily going to say that it's a main deck staple, but it is definitely a staple. And in the OCG, we're not actually seeing a lot of people main decking Forbidden Crown at all, rather side decking it, especially when they're going first. But in certain matchups, it's also very good going second. But against these decks, it's pretty good going first, and I'll explain why. So first of all, for generic cards, I guess you can say SP Little Knight and Moon of the Close Sky and stuff like that. Those kinds of monsters like Armades, Keeper of Boundaries, Evil Storm, Exciton Knight, the Light Feed monsters that just bridge into Requiem. If you can use Forbidden Crown against them, obviously not only are you negating like their effects completely, but most importantly, you're making it so that, well, first of all, with SP, you can't dodge because you can't respond with monster effects. Neither player can. But also, if you're using this on like a Light Fiend, it won't be able to be used as material for Fiendsmith Requiem. But one of the most important things here is the fact that some of these monsters, they do block the extra monster zone. So when you're preventing them from being linked off or being used as material for anything, what happens is that your opponent can't keep summoning more link monsters. In certain decks, I mean, this is really just going to be a turn skip. Let's just say use Forbidden Crown on like an EMZ monster against the Yummy deck. I mean, that might mean that your opponent can't go into Yummy Snatchy. So if your opponent goes like Hornet Drones and then summons Kagari, you can use Forbidden Crown on the Kagari, and then regardless of what your opponent does, Kagari points up. So never going to be able to summon anything below that. And obviously you can't synchro with a Kagari, you can't link it off. So your only out really is using cards like Forbidden Droplet to send the Kagari to the graveyard as cost, because that is still legal. So obviously the player himself can still do that. You can still send cards to the graveyard by cost, just not by like, you know, attributing it or using it as material for anything. That's just not gonna work. Yeah, like I said, keep that in mind. So yeah, very good against anything that utilizes the Sky Striker engine, and because of the existence of Forbidden Crown, maybe we're gonna be seeing less people play, you know, the Sky Striker cards in Yummy. Obviously, this is already like a trend that is dying off right now just because there's better engines to play, like Sofa Core, Mitsurugi, you know, etc. Blah blah blah. Kagari is probably gonna be even less played now that Forbidden Crown is going to be a thing. Against the Yummy, it's really good. If you're going first against them, you set this card, they can go normal summon Cupsy effect, you chain, you negate the Cupsy, and then they can't make a Snatchy, so unless they have like Marshmallow in hand to reveal and then special summon, they can't play at all, or Yummy Surprise to summon a Yummy from hand, but it's now the most realistic. So yeah, Forbidden Crown, very good. Against Malice, it's extremely good. And the OCG, you can hold it for when they've got Splash Mage, that way you negate the Splash Mage, and Splash Mage cannot be used as link material, which is kind of big when you think about it. And honestly, you can argue that it kind of behaves like a Solemn Strike. So the fact that this simple quick play spell that everybody can play and everybody can main deck as a potential board breaker can sometimes be just as good as a Solemn really speaks volume on how incredible it really is. And sometimes it's even better than a Solemn because it's not just like it negates the card and it stops it, but also it prevents your opponent from doing further things because the zone is blocked. And it does remind me a little bit of no material in that regard, whereas sometimes what really matters is like preventing everything else that is trying to happen. So regardless of how strong your opponent's hand is, it doesn't matter. But some decks do not care at all because they have too many different layers of play. I guess a really good example would be Dragon Tail, even though Dragon Tail is still affected by Forbidden Crown to some degree if, you know, they go first. You can still, you know, use Forbidden Crown on Lucius, and they won't be able to chain 5 mana to dodge, but they can still chain the Fallen Virtuous to destroy their own Lucius. That way Lucius will still search. And the exact same can be said about Arthelion. You can Forbidden Crown the Arthelion, and if they were relying on 5 mana to dodge the negation on it, well, it's not gonna work. Because again, neither player can respond with monster effects, but you can still respond with spells and traps, which is a little scary. So quick play spell cards are pretty much always good against Forbidden Crown, regardless of what they are, because you can chain and then you can chain a monster effect. So if you got like literally any quick play spell, then you can dodge with 5 mana and chain link 3. But I mean, good luck getting there. Fallen of the Virtuous is like the most realistic one because you don't need 5 mana, you're just going to be able to destroy your own monster, which is what really matters here. Mitsurugi is a deck that, you know, you can say doesn't really lose to Forbidden Crown too much, as the timing for it is really awkward, honestly, because they can always tribute it, they can always chain prayers to just tribute whenever you use Forbidden Crown. And again, that really brings me to the point where quickly spell cards in general are probably this card's kryptonite. Anything that can quick effect destroy, quick effect tribute, etc. It's just gonna make this card fizzle completely. Obviously, again, this card does not target, so at the very least, you can choose another monster on the resolution. Sometimes you might be forced to use it on your own monster, which means that you're negating your own cards, which is kind of stupid, but then again, there is some merit to negating your own cards, and that brings me to my next point. If you negate, if you use this on one of your own monsters, you're kind of like treating it as a Kikinagashi Fucho in the sense where it is unaffected by card effects, it cannot be destroyed, and if it's in defense position, I mean, unless your opponent can deal piercing damage, you're also just not gonna take damage, which means, you know, like you're not gonna die this turn. And honestly, imagine if we had this during Tenpai Dragon format, it would have been disgusting. Tenpai Dragon couldn't deal piercing damage, at least if I recall correctly. So the fact that you would have been able to transform literally anything into a Fucho, it would have been absolute disaster for this deck. You would have had like a 33.76% chance every single time going first of drawing a card that gives you a turn against this deck. And if we ever get some going second decks that are really, really good in Yu-Gi-Oh!, Forbidden Crown immediately going to be a 3-of staple must play in your side deck or potentially even in your main deck, because this card, this is one of the really positive things about it. It's its sheer flexibility. And again, the fact that it can be used on your own monsters, but very often you're going to be using it on your opponent's monsters. And more often than not, it's going to be going first, because going second, it's not that ideal, but it can still be very good. Let's just say your opponent has an attack position monster with very low attack, such as a Yummy Snatchy. You can use Forbidden Crown on it, and then you're going to be able to just attack over and over and over, because its effects are negated, but also it cannot be destroyed. So basically just dealing a lot of damage over the same monster and over, which means that even if your opponent had like an unaffected by card effects monster that you literally cannot deal with, the simple fact that your opponent has an attack position monster that you can attack over again and again, you know, that can make you win. And it actually reminds me of an interaction that I've seen with, it was a deck that summoned Chaos Angel in defense with a Link monster. I think it was like Cross Sheep or something. And the deck had 0 outs to Chaos Angel that was summoned like using a Light and Dark. But the fact that the Link monster, obviously an attack, had very low attack and it couldn't be destroyed by battle, actually backfired on the player who had the Chaos Angel. And because of that, he got OTK'd. It can definitely happen, you know, if you're playing Dragon Tail and the Chaos Angel is in defense, your Dragon Tail Horn will obviously not be able to bounce back the Chaos Angel. You can die to that combo, really. By the way, you're also transforming your own monsters into a pseudo towers with Forbidden Crown. So again, you're protecting yourself from kaijus, you know, Underworld Goddess and stuff like that, you know, just board breakers in general. But then again, like, you're using this on monsters that don't really do anything because you're also negating their effects. So if you're playing like a protect the castle strategy, it definitely can work. It's maybe just not like the most ideal thing that you can do. And also for a lot of decks in general, this can include Kashtira, Elven Notes, or just a lot of the decks. Sometimes the first summon that you do, it's like it's very hit or miss. Like, if it goes through and if you get to play, you're doing a lot. But if you get blocked on that one summon, you can pass turn immediately. And I think Elven Notes is a very good example where you're going to be summoning an Elven Notes monster in the center main monster zone. That's going to be your first summon, because otherwise, like, you can't summon your monsters at all. And then you get hit by Forbidden Crown, so you're not searching with it. And also, you're now blocking your center main monster zone, which means that you cannot summon more Elven Notes. And you can't even tribute summon your Elven Notes on top, because it also cannot be tributed. Like, the fact that it combines multiple effects really works in your favor in this instance. Because, again, the effect is negated. And then it can be used as link or synchro material, which does matter. Also, you can't crash it going first, which also matters. And it can't be tributed. It's completely ridiculous for Elven Notes players, but there is an out. And that is the continuous spell card, where you can just send the monster to the field, to the graveyard as cost. Which, again, is not something that Forbidden Crown prevents. Even though it's unaffected by card effect, you're sending it as a cost, so it still works fine. But yeah, obviously, like I said, a lot of decks do have that answer. Forbidden Droplet is just a generic answer. So Forbidden Crown doesn't necessarily always block everything, but if it can, this is where this card truly shines. But that's the true message of this video, and the real power of Forbidden Crown, really just to block zones and prevent your opponent from keep doing a lot of things with that one monster, and that all those possibilities from like that monster just developing into like more monsters. I know you can say Solemns do the same thing, but this card, in a way, it does remind me of No Material. And also it reminds me of how, I think it was the Lunite deck or something, how it used to go like Nyarla into Azathoth in the extra monster zone before like Master Rule 5. And if you could No Material the Nyarla, then the deck was actually just passing turn and doing nothing, which was the reason why some people played Zodiac Barrage, so that they could destroy their own Nyarla with Barrage when they were getting hit by No Material. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And let me know how you feel about Forbidden Crown in the comment section below. I really want to hear your thoughts. Do you think it's going to be one of the best staples in Yu-Gi-Oh! When are we going to be getting it? Do you think it's going to flop? I want to hear your thoughts, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.